Good evening, and welcome to this evening's episode of the Hearts of Men podcast, hosted by the Empowering Perspective community. We're your hosts for this evening's conversation. My name is Dwayne Dwyer. I go by the Mindset Coach. To my side, I have the Uncle Junior himself, the Consistency Coach. Below us, we actually have Mr. Roland Walker, poor man's Dr. Phil, also known as the Man of Many Hats. And beside him, we have Mr. Tawami Gaddy, the son of Timothy, who's also known as the Available Man. Listen, I apologize. Listen, the Uncle Junior, his name is Mr. Garfield Martin. I'm sorry, man. Gentlemen, how you guys doing today, man?
Man, I'm doing good. I thought you were gonna introduce son of Timothy as the guy with no beard.
Well, I was gonna get after that later. Mr. Babyface himself.
Everybody like, who is the young dude?
Yeah,
Baby booty
new
with
guy on the
grass.
show.
Listen, man. Let's get off that, brother. I mean, we was on the backstage. Let me stop. How you guys doing, man? What's going on?
It's another
Smiling
Friday.
in your face.
Yeah, so I'm good.
Backstabbers. Yeah, I'm singing on the backstabbers over there.
Oh my
Man, I'm
God.
doing good, man. I'm doing well. Been a
Listen,
good
man.
week. Been a
I love
long day. I thought I was gonna get a nap, but I didn't. So
Me too.
you didn't get
tried.
one?
Man, I tried, bro. I tried.
I ain't try. I just got busy.
Oh yeah. See, then there's that. But listen, go ahead, bro.
I know I was gonna say, so obviously I'm the only one with a real job, but I'm still doing good,
I got a real job. I'm just off during the summer.
I got a real job that allows me to wear facial hair. So
Pew, pew, pew.
I know, right? Listen, as you guys see, we're having fun on this Friday night, and I want to make sure that we include you in the fun because we always enjoy having you here with us. So thank you guys for joining us on this Friday evening, because trust me, we understand you could be any place else on this beautiful Friday evening, but you elected to spend time with us, and we don't take that lightly. So that being said, Michelle Ray, Bernadette Simmons, Nick D, Cassandra McKenzie, Crystal Everett, Miss Charlotte Jordan, Lisa Keys, Miss Verlene McCoy, welcome to this evening's conversation. And for those of you who are not in the chat, by all means, get in the chat. Let us know that you're here, because in this community, we like to celebrate each other's presence. As you guys recall from last week, we kind of dove deep into just conflict management, conflict resolution. We haven't got into managing or resolving anything yet. We're just talking about conflict. And so basically what we want to kind of focus on is yes, it is. Basically what we want to focus on is the how to manage conflict, how to dismantle conflict. Because first we're going to just dive into conflict. Then on the backside, we're going to talk about techniques that you guys can actually use so that you can resolve conflict at its lowest level. Now, again, last week we defined conflict. And again, I don't necessarily want to take up a whole lot of your time, but at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, we understand that conflict is one of those things that you are going to face. It is inevitable. I got it. We try the best that we possibly can, but conflict is going to happen, and you need to be equipped to handle this conflict. Now, in conjunction with that, the problem is in today's polarized society, escalating conflicts due to differing opinions are becoming common, straining relationships and hindering productive dialogue. There is an urgent need to equip individuals with effective strategies to transform disagreements into opportunities for understanding and growth. Addressing the growing conflicts in our polarized society requires an innovative approach that acknowledges and navigates the complexities of inequality, cultural differences, and communication gaps. By integrating strategies such as active listening, emotional intelligence, and perspective framing, we can transform these disagreements into opportunities for empathy, mutual understanding, and shared growth, ultimately fostering a more inclusive and harmonious society. This is the purpose of the Empowering Perspective membership program. As a member, we will walk you on, we will take you on a journey of deep awareness, then provide you the process to change, which becomes your guide to redefining your comfort zone. This is not just a membership; it's a family that is committed to your self development and celebrating your accomplishments. Discover the power within. Join the Empowering Perspective membership program today. If you're on YouTube, all you got to do is look at the bottom of your screen, locate the join button, and just click on the button and follow the prompts. If you're on a mobile device, just go in the show notes and you'll see a couple of segregated videos in there. Once you click on it, it will tell you certain things, so forth and so on. If you're on Facebook, LinkedIn, you got to come on over to YouTube. We welcome you, and by all means, we'll dive into it. Now, moving forward, I told you guys previously that we have four conflicting talking points, right? Four conflict talking points. Now, can't promise you we're going to cover all four of them because last week, as you guys know, we were stuck on one, and that's okay. I'm good for it. Last week, we talked about inequality, and we went over scenarios, and then we kind of talked about some questions surrounding that scenario. So today, we're talking about polarization. Now, many societies today are becoming increasingly polarized. Political, social, and cultural divides are often deepening, leading to more entrenched conflicts. People are less likely to engage in constructive dialogue with those who hold differing views, which can escalate conflict and reduce opportunities for understanding. The scenario for polarization is as such. The Martinez family, which comprises of parents Maria and Carlos, and their two teenage children, Isabella, who's 16, and Miguel, who's 14. Recently, a sensitive topic has surfaced. Maria believed that it's time to put Isabella on birth control. Maria is a public health nurse, sees birth control as a proactive measure to protect Isabella's health, and actually gives her a higher opportunity for the future. She sees it as an opportunity to educate Isabella about sexual health, responsibility, and autonomy, given that she's growing up and may soon start dating. Carlos, however, has reservation. He feels that introducing birth control might implicitly signal permission for Isabella to engage in sexual activity at a young age. As a father, he also grapples with the reality of his daughter growing up and fears that this step might be premature. This conflict of perspectives has led to heated discussions between Maria and Carlos. The tension is palpable in the family, causing discomfort for Isabella and Miguel, who sense the discord but don't fully understand its root. That being said, the first question that I have for you is what are the possible underlying factors influencing Maria's and Carlos's respective views about putting Isabella on birth control?
Y'all want to go? Y'all want it or what?
Yeah, I jump out there because I'm gonna be short, sweet, and simple. I think. I mean, so underlying causes. I think one of them was hit. From a medical perspective, right? Uh, all the preventive measures of you know whatever may come about, right? Um, but there may have already been a conversation medically about some issues that can be helped by taking birth control. I've seen young girls take it. I've seen teenagers take it, but for different reasons, right? Um, but then on the father side as well, it's that is that voice in the back of our heads that don't really want our daughters to lose their innocence. So anything that's tied to the idea of a sexual active life, it just rubs us wrong. It sets us uneasy, and it takes a lot of smoothing over really to get a lot of us out of that mental space. So when you're talking about for as far as the father goes, it's just simple. Like that's to me is the simple underlying issue of why he has reserves. But it's definitely a good conversation to be had.
Okay. Now you said short and sweet, but okay. But I think for the that's the petty, you know. But for the man, it could be twofold. It could be as Twami was saying, how he thinks automatically when you hear birth control, you think, okay, sex. So you thinking hyperactive sexual activities with your baby girl. And it's different because a man will give his son condoms and say, don't leave home without it, like it's American Express. But he won't do that with his daughter. And it's true. I'm a man. And when I used to leave the house, but with his daughter, he wants to make sure that everybody think their daughter gonna be a virgin until they 45 or something like that, unless they get married to some prince. And nobody's ever good enough. But
You mean to tell me that's not true?
Not true, granddaddy.
That's my son, by the way. That's my son.
Oh yeah. No, but so with a man, he automatically goes there unless he's been groomed by women to know that they could have physical impairments or ailments that will that the birth control will help. It'll help with their menstruation. It'll help with headaches. It'll help with weight gain or loss, or however that may be. And there's some things. So apparently they haven't had a conversation. But there are some things men will think one way and women will think another, simply because of how we were raised and the equipment that we have, and knowing where our minds were when we were that young.
Underlying factors influencing Mariah and Carlos's views. When I listened to this scenario, I thought about fear and protection when it came to dad. Like Roland was talking about, there's that protection, like no one's good enough for our little daughter, our little girl. I will say this: I don't have daughters, so my perspective is from raising young men, and not having daughters. So take that for whatever it is. If you were listening to my thoughts, but what I say is that I think when I looked at the dad, I saw fear and I saw protection. I think there's a fear of what could happen, and the implications of what could happen if she is out there and she is active and sexually, and something happens, and maybe she's not married, and she just gets pregnant or something like that. So for a father, I would think that that's probably maybe some of the fear that he may have, and that's some of the underlying factors that's influencing his thoughts behind all of these things, and the reason why he's on that side of maybe not wanting to support the getting the birth control. And I think the protection part too, but I think Roland already did a good job of summing that portion up. So I'll admit that from my talking point. And I think when it comes to mom, I think she may feel like, or she may think that, that's her area. She's the subject matter expert in that area. One, she's a female, and two, she works in as a public health nurse. So she's in that field all day long. So I know we're not at the point to where we're looking at solutions to this, but more so the underlying factors and their thought process. And I think, like I said, for the dad, it may come down to his fear and protection for his daughter. And then the mom, hers may come from being a woman, first of all. And then secondly, just being a public health nurse, being in that field.
So I'm loving every point you guys are making. And I like the fact that Roland, you brought in kind of like the health aspects of it as well, because, we don't have that experience. I don't have that experience on what those can actually cause. Um, and, hearing from, different conversations, being in conversations with my ex about my daughter, and, have grown up in a house full of women, understanding that birth control can actually help with those. That was like mind numbing. Oh, I didn't know. But I also understand the other side. The other side being that as a man, when we hear birth control, we automatically think one thing and one thing only. If you did not tell me that there is an issue, I automatically will default to this negative thought, because that's what I know. I'm just going to be completely transparent. What role does the daughter play in this though? Like, or does she play a role at all? I'm curious at this point because I'm loving what you guys saying, but she's 16. Does she get a vote? Do we bring her to the conversation? And if so, when?
I think she gets my bad.
Now go ahead.
No, so I think she gets a say. For me, it's kind of complicated as far as a vote, right? As far as whether or not what she says really changes the decision making process. Because if it's preventive medically, right, then that's where it gets kind of great. Because how much past what she learned in health class does she really know? Unless she's been talking to friends and stuff like that, that may have said, hey, I take birth control for this, and this. But mom seems to be the professional in the house when it comes to that side of the conversation. Now, if she's in a relationship with a boy, or she feels like she may end up having a sexually active lifestyle, yeah, her word has more weight. And as much as we wish we could, a lot of us would say, well, I'll talk her out of it, and I'll beat the boyfriend up. Or, yeah, you're not. No, you're not. You're not finna do none of that. And it's just man talk that we do. So I think if that's the angle, yes. If it's medical, she can say, if she's uncomfortable with the idea of taking birth control because she's not sexually active. But if what mom presents is, it has a lot of weight to it, then do we make that decision anyway because it might be good for her? So that's how I view it.
I think it's definitely her body, so she should be in on the conversation, because if something is there to be taught or learned, she needs to learn it. Because I remember when I think I had a sex ed class, was like sixth grade sex ed class. I started getting people pregnant in the ninth grade. So, there was a disconnect there because there was no follow through, there was no supervision. And so it's like, what do you do in between time? So if it's sex and she's thinking about doing it, or even she's did it, or she know it's about to come, people can be fake all they want, but look in the mirror. You know the mama, you know the daddy. You ain't goody two shoes. Mama, you was dropping it like it's hot. Your daughter doing the same thing. Just like I know my daughter's got my blood in me. And so it's like, man, that's why like all is great. Yeah, I know my daughter's got my blood in them. So you got to know your children and know people will realize that the baby don't come home with daddy. 9 times out of 9, the baby go home with mom. So when somebody gets pregnant, that's why you have all these stats. Y'all know I hate them stats. Have the stats that say single mother, single father. Yeah, when the person gets pregnant, especially young, the kid goes home with mama and their family. So if it's that situation, you got to protect not just her, but because right now she's not thinking. That little boy done talked her out of draws, and now she's thinking, okay, I love him, and he just trying to spend the time with her to deflower her.
I think you do have to bring the 16-year-old daughter in the conversation. Like Roland said, he was out there doing stuff in ninth grade. And at 16, this girl's probably in the 10th or 11th, maybe even 12th grade. I graduated at 17. So I was 16 in the 12th grade. So it's very possible that she could be a senior in high school. So she's exposed to boys. And if she looks like anything, then boys are probably going to be attracted to her, or girls. It all depends. This is 2023, but this ain't that conversation. But just saying, because we're talking about this situation, we're probably assuming that the girl is, she likes boys. Um, so I think that, yeah, she has to be included in the conversation, because if there's a pill to be had, if there's a shot to be had, if there's something that has to be inserted to prevent pregnancy, then these are things that's going to affect her body. And I also understand the health portion of that too. You know what I mean? I also understand that even in the health profession, there is people who may be on the other side of that and then may want to take on more natural ways of doing things, so that's a whole nother conversation. If the girl is bright and if she is, you know um kind of earthy or whatever, I don't want to, say anything bad about somebody, but she's kind of into certain things and she may not want to put those things into her body and still maybe want to be sexually active, and that's a whole nother conversation. Like I said, I don't have daughters, but to sum it up, I do think that you do have to include the daughter in this conversation.
So just to make sure I have a clear understanding of your standpoints, I got two that say definitely bring the daughter to the conversation. Roland and Unc, and then Gaddy, you say I just want to make sure I got you. Do you say yes or no? So you say yes, should bring up.
I said bring it to the conversation. I guess my uh reserve is how much weight, depending on the direction of the conversation, does it, like if it, because for me, I'm thinking if it's medical and it's actually something that's a necessity, do you just say, hey, you need to take this and let her know why? you
Right.
know uh if it's sexually or birth control, right, for sexual activity, yeah, I say then her word has more weight there. But
Yeah.
Like Roland said,
that,
you got to know your child. If you
yeah,
know your child
yeah.
is, if you know she's sexually active, I mean, you kind of got to do something, don't you? You know what I mean? I'm not saying what you should or shouldn't do. You, as a parent, are going to decide that what's best based off of your parenting style and based off of how well or how not well you know your child. And if your
But
child is sexually active, you know what I mean, and you know that she the type of child that's going to, she may be strong-willed and she maybe want to do things her way and she may not listen as much, then you as a parent may have to, encourage this to kind of protect her from herself. And like I said, I don't have daughters, but on the outside looking in, this is these are just my thoughts.
Yeah.
but can I ask a question though, for real? Because if we go back to the scenario, there's a point that's made that I think we kind of like gloss over. And I just want to know if y'all think
Bring
it's important. Like
bring
the
the
father,
scenario back up, please. Go ahead.
because the father makes the statement of it can bring about the idea of sexual activity, because now she knows she's on birth control, she can't get pregnant. Now does maybe that encourages her, but I even take it a little bit further. Maybe uh, if that's the reason, are we teaching her the lack of accountability of her body? Like, just don't be out there,
I think at 16, you ain't teaching her jack. She
but
know
why?
what she need to know. At 16,
She knows how to do it, or she gonna figure that out.
she know how.
I'm in elementary school. Fifth graders already know.
Yeah, well, they know
16,
what to do. They
Yeah.
know, they know how to make babies.
that's
But
why you gotta have it. That's why you gotta have sex conversation way before 16. So
16
she
is
should
late.
know about venereal diseases. She should know about pregnancy. Should know about IUDs and the little Neuroplan or whatever they stick in your arm and pills. And
Mhm.
she should know
I-
everything, because people think, okay, if I'm on a pill, I don't get pregnant. Okay, you can catch a disease. You can have some little itchies down there. You can have some bumps down there that ain't gonna go away. So it's some things that, and you don't try to scare like, oh, you're gonna have that. That's what they did us. They show us the penis that looked like a trumpet, and then
yeah,
they show us, and thinking,
yeah,
oh,
The
again,
one
next thing you know, you get that hit
with the
and you go
cauliflower,
crazy.
the
yeah,
penis with the
yeah, yeah,
cauliflower.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that was unnerving for me. If you don't mind, bring up Miss Frances Walker's statement because I think this kind of goes in line with what Uncle Junior said. And keep in mind, as we're having this discussion, we are men, right? So we are talking from the perspective of men who have like we're totally clueless when it comes down to the experience. And we're looking at it from the perspective of men, but being open minded of the total process. And I'm loving what they're actually saying here, just because at the end of the day, you don't know when, for the most part, your child get exposed to, sexual behavior, whatever that looks like. It's in rap videos, it's on Instagram, it's on TikTok, it's everywhere. It's on TV, so you got to monitor what they look at. It's on I mean, it's everywhere, so you got to be careful. And a lot of this tends to permeate their ears and their eye gates, and then it becomes curiosity, and then you get around the wrong little boy, right? And the little boys start trying to influence and convince, and leadership starts at a very young age. So these are the things that we need to be aware of as parents. And I love the fact the way that you guys are dissecting this, but I really want to get after the other side. 'Cause Gaddy, thank you for diving into that. I really want to get to the other side of this because everybody agreed that we should bring the dad to that she should bring the dad to the conversation. I'm sorry, not dad, the daughter to the conversation. But when do you bring the daughter to the conversation? Is there a trigger that says it's time to talk to the child? Like, what does that look like? Because remember, both mom and dad, they're still at odds. There's some differences of opinions. And, I think all of us as dads, we kind of see Carlos's point of view, not 100%, but we see why he feels the way he feels. So, gentlemen, please.
I think you have to be. Oh, go ahead.
No, I'm asking the question. You asking when do you bring dad in?
No, when do you bring the daughter to the conversation?
Oh, the daughter. Okay, go ahead.
I think that you have to be willing to go slow and steady. And what I mean by that is like you have to get meticulous to make sure you get all the right details and all the pertinent details so y'all can make the right decision as a whole or as a group, right? So definitely what she says, mom and dad need to have a conversation, whatever, blah, 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 and kind of approach it. Hey, this is how we're going to handle the situation when it comes to Isabella. Okay. And then once they bring Isabella in, they've already talked about what they're going to talk about, how they're going to discuss it, blah, blah, blah. But the thing about it, they may not have talked about all the scenarios. They may not know what's going to come out of her mouth. So I think that they have to approach that and start the conversation with, hey, this is what we're going to be talking about right here. We may not get to a solution today. And if not, me and mom are going to go back to the table and then we're going to come back with another conversation. I don't think that something like this, I think that you have to be open to the fact that it may take more than just one conversation because feelings may get involved, emotions may get involved. And there may be some new information that you get hit with from Isabella that you as the parents may not have been expecting. And it may not be the best time to make the decision, especially if you guys are not in agreement yet.
I'm with him because I think first and foremost, the two adults need to have a conversation to where they can be on a united front before they bring the baby in. She's 16, but she's still a baby and she's incorrigible. So you want to bring her in when you guys have agreed upon to listen without emotion, without all this bickering and back and forth stuff. Listen to what the girl says first and foremost, so you can know where she is. Because the mother may say, "Well, I know my daughter, yada yada." Then the daddy get offended. I know my baby too. And so I think you guys the adults have a conversation, then bring the daughter in, not as a little kid, but as a equal in the decision making process here.
I can't disagree because I think any conversation, even involving children or the children's bodies, children's life, whatever the case may be, the parents have to have an understanding of what the conversation is that we're having, right? Even if we don't agree on the viewpoints at the time we're bringing it up, but we can at least be on the same page when it comes to educating the daughter about what is on the table and what we're discussing. Because you know and I know where everybody's saying when they say that she knows that we know, because we knew what we were doing, right? And in middle school we knew we was figuring it out, right? High school we was perfecting it, right? But the educating them on what's actually going on and what the conversation is before we just jump straight into, do you want to not, so I'm big on that. Parents must have a conversation, must talk, must know where we're going, or would just spend, because like Roland said, she's still a baby. She's a young adult, but she's a baby, and so her mind is still not as mature as yours is to have the conversation on a level that you may want to have it. So y'all have to make sure all of those things are ironed out in a
I love it.
conversation. You know where it's going.
I love it. Ladies and gentlemen, welcoming to the stage. It is the star of the show. Everybody loves Chris. Chris McClellan from across the table with Chris. Welcome to this evening's conversation, sir.
Greetings, greetings. How is everyone this evening?
Bless, man. Glad you can make it. Glad you can make it.
It was tough, but I got here. My apologies for my tardiness.
No, no, no. Your tardiness is welcome. As long as you're here, we're good. Just kind of get in where you fit in. We've already dived into one of these scenarios. If you don't mind, bring the scenario back across so he can get caught up as we continue the conversation. Now, gentlemen, I'm loving your perspective because it appears that everybody say, bring the daughter to the discussion table so we can kind of, get after this and have a more well-rounded discussion. So I'm gonna say the thing that I know somebody else is already saying, they're just not saying it. So when we get our mind fixed on the thing, we can be stubborn. That's number one. But then I also want to bring up Bernadette Simmons' point because Bernadette brought a great point to the discussion that I don't think we ever considered. And when you look at this statement really kind of changes the dynamics of it because it appears that daddy may not necessarily need a vote. Now, I'm not saying he shouldn't, but I'm bringing it to I'm laying all this on the table. Again, when we get our mind fixed on something, we can be stubborn now. All the women in the chat gonna hit a one because they believe men stubborn when we get our mind fixed on something. I know I can be. But then again, they don't necessarily need our permission. The child doesn't need our permission to get on birth control. Gentlemen, what are your
Legally,
thoughts?
she don't have to tell y'all nothing. Yeah, legally, she don't have to tell y'all nothing. She can just
So,
go do it.
so mom and
To
daddy
keep it
can just,
real.
mom and the daughter can just run away with this, and will that create more of a divide with daddy? That's the point I really want to understand.
Yes.
See,
But
yes,
it's happening
but-
right now. It's
I have a different take on this. I truly do. I would say the dad would immediately think, "Oh my God, my daughter's gonna be out here doing this, and this." Mama could be thinking, "Protection is preventative, so let's prevent something from happening. So let's just go ahead and nip this in the bud." She is 16 years old. She is probably in high school. You know what I'm saying? Either about to graduate or in her junior year. She knows what sex is. She knows, she hears about it. Her friends are probably doing it. So you have to understand the high school peer pressure behind that too. You understand what I'm saying? So there are different factors that you have to throw in this. The father is going to always be the father. The father's going to be like, "I don't want nobody touching my daughter." That's just it. She's my quote unquote baby, but she is 16 years old. You understand what I'm saying? To keep it real, I agree with the mother. I agree with the mom. In high school, I had condoms on the grocery list. I wouldn't go to I didn't lose my virginity until my freshman year in college, but I still had them on me as a just in case. Protection is preventative. So if you don't want your daughter to end up a statistic, I don't see what the issue is.
I had one too. I had the same one all high school.
The same kind?
Mm-hmm.
At an expiration
stop
date.
it.
Okay.
I don't believe that.
Yeah.
I don't-
The same one.
I'm not even going
I'm
to
like,
say.
yeah,
But
yeah.
Look
but
at the
I'm
private
saying,
chat.
I think with this scenario, she can go get it. I think that me as a father, I will feel slighted because anything that affects our children, I think I need to know unless it's, something. But things like that, I need to know because that's something that protects her. And if you ain't here, say you get hit by a car, I'm the one got to continue to, when I see this, I got to make sure things are continue that cycle. So I want to know. I want to know if you gave my son a condom. I want to know if you giving my daughter birth control. I want to know these things, not to be nosy, but because it's part of being a protector of the family.
Well, a part of this is also parents are not vocal really on some are, but it's not in a mass rush because even when I was in high school, parents know what we had an office in our school where there was a bowl of condoms, always filled, never went empty, but everybody had a handful. We had a clinic downtown that gave out condoms, that gave out the little flavor things. You try not to say anything that'll go crazy, but that it had everything. We just grab them up and you go, and nobody knows any unless you go through your kid's backpack, right? And that's the thing in some houses, but they don't. And not only do they not have to tell us anything, but like the reality of what y'all talking about is it happens every day. I know dudes. My girls are young, but I know dudes that going through it now that have gone through it while I was in the military. They come back and mom and daughter done went and got put on birth control, got IUD put in, doing this, that, and the third. And dad is like, what? So it and he can't do anything about it. She could do it behind mama back if she wanted to, because the healthcare provider is not going to tell you.
See, I
legally
think
they can't.
Feelings got to go out the window. Like dad feelings can't be in his feelings about this, because I'm like you. We had the bowl of condoms and all that stuff. Ain't stopped me from making no babies, because there was a stigma on going to the jar. There was a stigma. You ain't supposed to be doing it, but they watching you do it, but they make you feel bad if you got them. They make her feel bad if she on the pill. Oh, she just fast, this, that, and other. No, she's protecting herself. That's responsible to me. So call me crazy, but I got grandkids, 13 of them.
Well, first thing, Roland is right. Emotions have to go out the window, but projection also has to go out the window too. We are in a different stage. We cannot project how we were upon our children. We cannot do that. That is unfair. We have to let them be them. Yes, you were reckless. Yes, the mom did whatever. So what? If this kid, first of all, if this child sees what is happening and decides, I don't want to do this, so I'm going to protect myself, I applaud her. Dad will just have to be mad. For real. Dad will just have to be mad. I would rather my daughter come to me and say, Dad, I didn't talk to you about this, but I've seen our family history and I've seen things that I do not want to be a part of. So I took a little bit of initiative and I went to the doctor and I got on birth control. Not that I'm even having sex, but I just did it because I don't want anything to do with what has happened in our family. I do not want that for my life. It is not saying that you are bad people. It is saying she don't want that for her. I would applaud her for that. You understand what I'm saying? A lot of us automatically think birth control equals sex. Birth control could also mean I want to regulate my hormones. Birth control can also mean I want to regulate my period so it don't hurt so much and I can clock it, because a lot of birth control regulates the cycle so that way you know when it's happening and you can prepare. You understand what I'm saying? It could be she want to regulate some things so that way her body responds the way that she needs it to respond. It's not always about some dude trying to talk her out of her panties. It could be I want my body to act right and I want to be able to at least time it. You understand what I'm saying? There's so many different variables that come to this. I would be like, all right,
but
I'm
also
glad
to
you
regulate
did that.
hormone.
What'd you say, bro?
No, I was saying you also have on the flip side of those who do it to regulate hormones when it's not really something medical, it's just something they want to do, kind of like Chris brought up, to regulate cycles and stuff like that, can also have backfiring effects too. So this is why the conversation needs to be before. I get it, she can do it without me, and I get it, feelings need to be out of it, and I don't think that negates the fact that we should still have the conversation ahead of time, because I want you to be fully educated. Because if you get anything from your friends or even the service provider that has a bias in the conversation, right? Because we have those, so let's fully explore this thing beforehand. So if you don't have an issue and you do it to regulate, you might never be able to put your stuff back on track when you're ready to have children. So
But we're
are
talking
we
about the
looking at all angles?
scenario. Yes, we have to, because we're talking about the scenario where her mother knows about this. So if her mother knows about this, 9 times out of 10, she was probably giving her the knowledge that she needs to go make a good decision or to even think about it. So if mama is, which is why dads and moms are important together. If
But
mama
no, I'm
is
talking
giving
about
her, wait. If mama is giving her all of the information necessary because she is knowledgeable in this, why not trust your daughter to go make a good decision and talk to a doctor?
I'm talking about the
Especially since
idea
she
of
don't need your position, your permission. She don't. And she really don't have to tell you.
it doesn't negate the fact that you're still a parent. That's not the point I'm making of is rather her do it and then tell me afterwards. Because even
Oh, so you
mama
just want to
can give.
know.
I'm her father. Yes, I want to know. Regardless of what her decision is at the end, I want to make sure that I am able, me and her mother are able to give her full understanding. Even mama can have a bias. Even I can have a bias. It still has to happen before.
You
Like that's
and
that's all I'm saying.
you and the mom can have all of the biases you want. But if she is taking the knowledge that she got from her mama and going to see an actual professional about this, I think the professional kind of trumps how you and mama feel about knowing about it beforehand.
So you
So
don't
let's
care
That's
what
that
your daughter do.
to keep it real. That's that. This is one of those times where I would actually be glad my daughter went behind my back and did something, because she did something to prevent something from happening in the future. And then she came to me like a grown up and held herself accountable about it and talked to me.
so
That's
let me
grown up 101.
let me do this. Let me do this because I think we see the dichotomy here, right? And Chris, I got your perspective. Gaddy, we got your perspective. Uncle Junior, and Roland. How do you guys feel about this? I'm curious at your perspectives.
Oh, I was gonna let him go.
They're playing double.
Um,
They're playing double dutch.
I see it. I see it both. I see it both sides. I think that. So here's my thing. You have to think about, like I said again, the child that you raise. Did you raise your child in a certain way to where they're mature enough to make these decisions? You have to know your child. If you raise your child, hopefully, like everybody in a perfect world wants to, this is what we want. I think in a perfect world, we want our children to be able to grow up and make decisions without us. You know what I mean? When it comes to protecting themselves and things that benefit them in a positive way. But like I said, we have to remember the child that we raise. Did we raise a loose type daughter? Did we raise a more respect for your body type daughter? You know what I mean? Did we raise a young lady who um knows what she wants and can do these things and make these decisions? How is her decision making being up to this point? And I think that we have to look at that too. Like, if she has been doing things right, how can we, you know what I mean, be like, nah, I ain't with that just because I didn't know? I think in any good, not in any relationship, but I think in a lot of strong relationships, there are secrets that are being held, but there are also secrets that are being shared. And what I mean by that is this: when I was married before my ex-wife, we didn't care who got the information as long as we got it. You know what I mean? There was some stuff the boys were more comfortable telling her, and there was some stuff that they were more comfortable telling me. At the end of the day, we always told them we ain't going to tell nobody, but we always told each other. But we always knew if she told me something in confidence, I couldn't go back and say anything, no matter how much I wanted to, because my son had told her that in confidence. And yes, I may have got the information, but I wasn't necessarily able to do anything about it because my son may have told her something like that in confidence. So I see the portion about maybe the child doing things behind her back, but like I kind of respect the fact that if I raise my daughter to the point to where she knew herself and she was able to make a grown woman decision to where she was protecting her body, I guess I kind of feel like I kind of got to let my ego go a little bit, um, because I look at it as my son taking on the same responsibility. It's no different than if my son was going and grabbing some condoms out of the bowl.
I think her level of responsibility is irrelevant because we're talking about her taking care of herself right here. And if the object is to care for my child and she feels the need, her and her mother feel the need to get on some type of protection, I got to roll with the protection part. I can't, and now I can talk and teach and do all what daddies do. But at the end of the day, this girl is 16. So at 16, you can't hinder her from making adult decisions. You got to allow her in that space and encourage her to make choice and right decisions and not just loosely based off what some boy needs. But you can't come with the labels like whether she's loose and all that other stuff, because now it's kind of discouraging and demeaning to her decision making process. So I think as fathers, because that's how we look at it as a sex thing, but we got to look at this as a maturing thing and another step in her growth.
I like it. I like it. I like so. And here's why I like it. I like the differing of perspectives, and here's why. Because I guarantee you that this is somebody's reality. Either they are going through it right now, or they will go through it at a certain point in time. So that's why I kind of wanted to dig deeper into this. Because let's just be honest, there are some dads like they might be offended that their child was not comfortable enough to come and talk to them about this particular thing, especially if that's my daughter. You understand what I'm saying? But the truth be told is that I need to take a strong look in the mirror and understand that I might be the reason why she didn't feel comfortable enough to come and talk to me about this thing. So I think that see, there you go, Michelle. See, me and Michelle and Ann be vibing. That's what I'm talking about. Good to see you, Miss Charlotte. Welcome as always. Most girls may not be comfortable with dad. Absolutely. But I think that might be on me. So I need to take a strong, hard look in the mirror and see what did I do, what types of barriers that I create based upon my behaviors, whatever the case may be. How often do I just sit down and have a regular conversation with my child to become curious and interested about what is actually going on, which actually opens the door for her to come and have those types of conversations with me. When it comes down to Isabella, right? When I'm sorry, Isabella's a child. When it comes down to Maria, so when Maria brings it to Carlos, if I was in Carlos' shoes, I get it, but you're gonna have to make that comment. Don't come to me with the new hotness that you learned at work. You're gonna have to come to me with the specificities about our child. You see what I'm saying? Like I'm not rejecting anything you say, but let's be specific. Is she in trouble? Is she in pain? Is she physically hurt? Like let's talk. Let's get down to it. Let's talk seriousness because now I need to move my perspective from just overall protection to being more concerned. And the concerning aspect of a father should be able to bypass the initial emotions of, oh, my feelings hurt because this is what you want to do. I don't necessarily agree with it. So that's why I wanted to hear everybody's perspective, and we kept digging deeper into this. So thank you, gentlemen, for your insights. And man, thank you to everybody that's in the chat. Man, they are lighting it up. I tell you what, whatever you bring to me, that's what we'll talk about. Because I don't know where to start. I mean, man, and thank you guys for who put the ones in the chat. Because you're being honest. Like we as men, when we get our mind fixed on stuff, we can be stubborn, we can be bullheaded. And so those are all facts.
And that's true. And I just want to add to that what
Yeah,
you just said, Coach.
absolutely.
Like, and I think we evolve as men over time too. You know, the way I would have thought about this scenario at 20 or 25 is totally different than how I think about it now. Back in the day, I would be like, I need to know why I ain't know. She better tell me what's going on. Blah, blah, blah. I need to know, that would have probably been me. I don't have daughters again. But now at 47, I can see taking a totally different approach in handling the situation.
Yeah, that was me. Nope, ain't happening. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Nope, not.
Say
We ain't
nope.
gonna talk about it. This
Yeah.
conversation is over. Birth
Yeah.
control, 16. But
Yeah.
back then they couldn't do it on their own. I
You
don't
just
think.
telling us okay to do it.
Absolutely, that was
Yep.
fixed. But yeah, great point, and I'm glad you brought that to the table. Yes, we got that. That Bernadette with that great point. That's what kind of spun us into this conversation. But I think what you just said, Uncle Junior, I'm sorry, when you see changes in your child's son or daughter is the best time to bring them into the conversation. I like that point. Like when you start noticing behavioral changes, because here's what I noticed with my daughters, and you gentlemen with the girls, you guys can tell me when that time of the month show up, they changed. They started, they were like totally different. Like my daughter, it would literally have her like debilitated. Like she would go to the bedroom and stay in the bedroom all day long. When she come out, she got on all black, like she's the crypt keeper. I'm looking, I'm like, what's going on with her? And my ex would hit me, I'm like, the cycle's on. I'm like, oh. Then I looked at her because that's when I learned that everybody synced. I didn't know that. You know what I'm saying? So that, and I was like, oh, wait. So okay, I get it now. Right. So like when you have multiple females in the house, all of them sync at the same time. So I did not know prior to that. So my daughter was walking around the house looking like the crypt keeper and staying in the room all day long from sun up to sundown. I was like, I don't understand what's going on. So I'm glad she said that because that's actually a good point. Back in my younger days, what I probably should have been doing is going to her and ask her, is there anything I can do? You know what I'm saying? Is there anything I can get you? Do you need me to go to the store and get you some medicine, stuff like that? Show concern, show compassion, so forth and so on.
From what I've learned,
Like,
chocolate works.
Chocolate
like,
does work. Cocoa, the
Chocolate.
dark
Yeah.
chocolate, the dark chocolate.
Yep.
and so I have a cousin, right? And what you talking when you were saying that, you made me think back on my teenage years when my younger cousin, when I lived with them. She was really in that phase. 'Cause I moved in, she just became a teenager. She was really in that phase. She didn't like to come out of the room. She didn't like to be bothered. Now, granted, her siblings were younger than her and annoying, right? Uh, but I saw, and this is just something that you just boomed in my mind, because I watched how that situation was handled, and it was kind of like, come out the room, or I'll take the doors off the hinges, old school
Mm,
style, fathering kind of mindset. And to this day, she still struggles with letting people in, like, because she had that ability to close herself in when she needed to, because hormones was going crazy, or her just needing to self-reflect, or whatever's going on in the mind of a girl just entering that phase, was not handled properly. That now, you see her as an adult. She got those who she cool with, but letting a lot of people in like that, I can see the struggle that it put on her life growing into adulthood,
yeah.
not being able to deal in that phase properly. So that's a good point, Coach.
Yeah. Yeah. I appreciate that. Chris, you good, man?
I am reading the private chat.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I had to get out of that. So, yeah, I got caught up for a second as well.
Put you on
Yeah,
Uh,
I'm out
game,
of that
brother.
too.
Put you on game.
yeah. So transition, because I think what we were talking about moving forward, because Uncle Junior, you got a good point, and I think that leads into the next area, which is lack of communication skills. So many people lack the necessary skill for effective conflict resolution, such as active listening, emotional intelligence, and negotiation. This can lead to conflicts escalating unnecessarily and causing harm. So, considering the same scenario, the challenge, however, lies not just in the differing viewpoints, but in their lack of effective communication skills to discuss this sensitive topic. Maria tends to take a more direct approach, presenting facts and health centered reasoning, which may come across as dismissive of Carlos's emotional concerns. Carlos is struggling to articulate his feelings and discomfort, often resorts to silence or brief defensive remarks. This communication gap has amplified their disagreement, causing tension in the family. Isabella and Miguel, perceiving this tension but not understanding the reason behind it, feel a growing sense of unease in the family environment. So the question here is I'm sorry, how is the lack of effective communication skills contributing to the disagreement between Maria and Carlos about putting Isabella on birth control? Miss Brianna Moore, welcome to this conversation. Gentlemen, the floor is yours.
It's doing exactly that. It's contributing to more conflict and more disagreement in the house. And who knows how big these conversations can get. Fussing, fighting, um I think it can cause mistrust. It can cause more of the lack of understanding. And then if they still haven't come to a decision, it's like Isabella out there, like, you know what I mean? Like, what am I supposed to be doing? So I just think it's just keeping the ball rolling because there's a lack of communication. So instead of them working together to come to a solution, it's just they're ping ponging off each other and getting in their emotions and feelings and stuff, and probably can't get to a point to where they can use effective communication and somebody listening and different things like that, to where they can get to a point to where they can have the conversation and come to a conclusion or a solution to the problem at hand.
Kids know, kids don't want their parents to be at odds. They automatically think, if they have two parents, they automatically think if they arguing, oh, they fussing and fighting, divorce. And at times, I can't say at all times, but and if they see you guys can't communicate, why the heck would they want to talk to you? They don't want to talk to you if y'all can't even communicate. Y'all arguing all the time. So when I bring something serious where I know, oh, dad about to flip out, oh, mom about to start tripping, I'm gonna keep to myself and do my own thing.
I agree. But I also think both parents can mess this up, right? Because I know women put one in the chat for men being stubborn, and men, depending on the conversation, will probably put one in for women being stubborn, right? Uh, but
That's Twummy Daddy 55555.
yeah, down that number. But that in and of itself creates dangers in the relationship alone, right? And the household being uneasy from then on, because what happens is mama goes off and do it anyway with daughter, then daddy feels devalued in his own home, right? And once a man gets into that space, we practice the art, probably be an argument, but that's cool. But we practice the art of disassociating ourselves from a thing where we don't feel respected or appreciated, right? Because that's not a space that men like to operate in. I don't operate in spaces where I'm not respected or valued. So that can happen. But at the same time, your stubbornness as a man can make mom feel the same exact way. And now the difference is she's just gonna go about her happy day and do what she's gonna do anyway, right? If you can't budge at all, so we have to be able to not only communicate what we want, but also effectively listen to what's being said and digest it and figure out what's the medium ground. Is it educating myself? Is it you educating yourself? Is it a common ground where we can meet, not just in this scenario, but period. So when we don't have effective communications in the home between mom and dad, it can sever the vibe of the home altogether. And then the other party be sitting there talking about, what did I do? I don't know why he turned mean, or I don't know why she don't like to talk to me and just do whatever she want to do, because we create those environments to cause the other party to have to react so that they can still mentally survive in that space.
I really don't see this as an effective communication problem. I see this as an ego problem. If the mom has the information necessary for her to make this decision, and dad is in his feelings about her having this information because he feels a different way about it, because he probably is not privy to the information, or the information is over his head because he's not a woman, so he don't know how this stuff function right. You understand what I'm saying? It could be that dad just doesn't want this to be because he's fearful of the other side of it, instead of him actually looking at it and being like, okay, mama knows what this is. She's an expert in this. Let me put my ego aside and back up. Because to keep it real, I have absolutely no idea what I am talking about. I'm just talking because I instantly, automatically hear, when I hear birth control, I hear sex in the same sentence instead of it being something completely different. You understand what I'm saying? I don't view this as a lack of effective communication. I view this as dad being in his ego. because this is not his lane. Yes, you are the dad, you are the head of the household. That is true. But your wife is supposed to be valued counsel. This is the part of the game where she is valued counsel.
Now I'm gonna play advocate. I don't. I no longer use the term devil's advocate. I'm gonna play advocate because depending upon who you talk to, they may say it the same thing just from the different perspective. The fact that the wife and the daughter feels that they should do this thing without necessarily including dad into this discussion is a part of ego as well. So, is there any truth to that? And again, keep in mind we have a communication gap. We got one person who speaks direct statistically and facts, and the other person is kind of like sharing their emotional concerns, right? And then there's a gap between the two of that. So we got to keep that in mind as we're addressing it. So, what are your thoughts on that? The ego being on the other side, is that possible?
Yes, that is true. But if that was really the case, they would have just did it and told him. It wouldn't have been a conversation to begin with. It would have been like, "Hey, I took my daughter down there to go get some birth control." That's what it would have been. Instead of it being an actual conversation, you know what I'm saying, with dad saying, "I think we should put her on birth control. I could do it without you, but I really need your input on this." That's what I'm talking about, the value counsel side of it.
Right.
She made a decision. She saw something happening. She sees her 16-year-old young lady of a daughter growing up in this hypersexualized society where let's not go there. And the mom is saying, okay, I see what this is. This is not like how we were when we were coming up. This is completely different. They are actually encouraging this behavior. So let's do what we can to protect her because we cannot control her. You understand what I'm saying? That's how I would view it. If it was an ego thing, it would have been a one and done. Hey, we did it. Shut up. I'm talking to you about this, which means I want your input. But I know the numbers. I know the data. I work in this. So hear me out. Then let's make a decision. But don't get upset at the fact that I'm bringing this to you. I may be a little direct because I'm not talking feelings. I'm talking, this is our daughter. We need to protect her. And this is quite possibly the easiest way for us to do it, aside from putting a chastity belt around her waist and locking her up in the tower. You understand what I'm saying?
Got a tower, Chris? No. No, I understand that, but I think it's people think that men, it's a panel of brothers here. Men shouldn't be having this conversation, but I think that's how older people should be, it may be thinking, because when you think about it, there's a problem with how men think because we were left out of the conversation. We were left out of the knowledge. We were left out of the understanding. So, like, I had two teenage daughters in high school. So I needed to know about periods. I needed to know about certain things when it came to women because I didn't. As I'm growing, I can't call some woman every time something going on. She flipping out, this, that, what she need. You know, I can't do that. So I think we both need to be a part of the conversation. And now, where I disagree is you can't do something, then come back and then say, "Hey, I did it," and then want to talk about it. Not with me. That you talk to me, then do.
No,
Because
but
I think
see, Roland, that's what I was saying. Like, if it was an ego thing, that's what would have happened. But
right,
it's not an ego thing. She
right,
came to him. You understand what I'm saying? And
right.
that's
I'm
the
with you
part
with
that
it.
I'm
Yeah,
struggling with. I'm struggling with the fact that you are hyper emotional about the fact that I brought something to you that I really didn't have to. You understand what I'm saying? And I know
oh,
what
I'm
I'm
with you.
talking about.
Yeah, I
So
think,
that's
yeah,
the part that
she
I'm
should be.
just struggling with.
Yeah, and I think ego and feelings got to get out the way. Let's take care of the child the best we know how and the best we can. And she's 16, so she's almost grown. She's almost about to be out this house. So you don't want her to just be getting something when she go off to college, because she go off to college, then you heard this, you know the statistics there. So I think that men should know, and these conversations have to be had simply, if not just for comfortability, making that we're comfortable talking about it. Because I remember my daughter was 10, my oldest was 10 when she came on her period. and she came telling me happy, and I'm like, you know. So then, dad got to know what to do in that point. He can't, because if mom ain't there, what you gonna do? So we can't just say, because there's a lot of single females raising boys that refuse to take boys to men because you think you know it all too. So I think in that instance too, you got to know what to do and got to slow it down and say, man, let me get a man's take on this. Just like men got to say, let me get a woman's take on this. And these conversations got to be had.
Yeah, and this is the
And
part of the game. If we're talking about birth control with women, this is the part of the game where I need a woman's input.
I'm just gonna for me, and this is where Tawami stands. At the age of 16, like Roland said, she's almost an adult. She's about to live her life. I'm going to create, or I am going to attempt at all costs for all my children, girls and boys, to be able to transition from the dictator of my house, of what happens in my house, to be now becoming and I'm not a dictator, but you know what I mean, right? But now being a mentor and a guide. And if I don't want to set a precedence for her to never consult me in life because she turned 18 or because she's 16, doesn't mean that she's the best decision maker, regardless of how I raised her, what I taught her. There's still more life to learn at 16, because I think all of us thought we knew it all. Uh, shoot, and some of us are still stuck there, right? Like we never evolved past the know-it-all stage. But I want my children and even my daughters to be able to come to me and say, Dad, I'm at a crossroads, or Dad, I have a decision to make. How do you think I should approach this? Because my approach is never going to be, especially to my adult daughter, you better do this, or this is what you need to. It's going to be, well, here's the information. Let me help you. Let me guide you into making good decisions. Now transitioning from a teenager to an independent adult who has to make these decisions on your own, especially the older I get. So I think that for me, that's my goal. So every decision I'm making at this 16-year-old stage is involving myself in her process of decision making, so that she doesn't regret a 16-year-old's decision at 21 or at 30. I want to be able to assist her and guide her through all of that.
I
Me
like
and her
it.
mother, obviously.
I like it. I like, because I think it's important. I get the idea of what can happen and what the law says able to happen, whatever the case may be. But are we looking at the entirety of the whole? Are we looking at the entirety of the family? Or are we just looking at what a person can do, what the law allows them to do? And I'm not saying that a person is wrong for doing what the law allows them to do. I'm just saying that we got to look at the second and third order effects. A lot of times what I believe is that sometimes people do things and don't necessarily consider the second and third order effects. I, for one, would not want to do a thing and then turn around and then got to face, all of this on the backside, facing, mom and dad bickering afterwards or whatever. So I think that kind of factors in. I think when it comes down to the communication piece, I think it has to, like, they have to find a way to kind of bridge the gap. They got to find a way to, be less, like, it's okay to be direct. It's so, because I'm direct. It's okay. Not, and that's not why it's okay, but it's okay to be direct, and it's okay to get after the facts. But the being direct and getting after the facts should be a place to where you set information in place. Once the information is in place, and then the other person, Carlos, can actually hear the information, now we can have dialogue about the information. But if I'm just being direct, just simply because I can be direct, and every time something comes on my, it's just direct, but we're not analyzing the facts. Now we're at an issue, we're at an impasse, and we're never going to get past, we're never going to get beyond that. What I've learned is that most people, they either struggle identifying the facts or they struggle receiving the facts. in some place within the scope of that, you'll find one person might be hyper focused on just facts, and one person may be hyper focused on just emotions, kind of like what you got with Carlos and Maria in this particular scenario. So great insight, gentlemen. And I kind of want to move on to cultural differences because next week I want to get after the answers to all of this, right? So cultural differences. As societies become more diverse, conflicts can arise from misunderstandings or clashes between different cultural values or norms. Without the skills or willingness to navigate these differences, such conflicts can lead to tension and division. Still focus on the Martinez family. Let's explore a situation involving Carlos. After days of tension in the family regarding the birth control discussion, Carlos decides to reach out to a friend for advice. His friend Amina, which is of Arabic descent, is from a different cultural background, and has always offered a fresh perspective on various matters. During their conversation, Carlos shares his concern about his 16-year-old daughter, Isabella, and the idea of her being on birth control. Amina, coming from a culture where discussing sexual health openly is less common and topics like birth control are highly stigmatized, expresses shock and disapproval. She advises Carlos to completely refuse the idea and express his authority as a parent. Carlos, though initially seeking advice, starts feeling uncomfortable with Amina's perspective. He believes in maintaining an open line communication with his children, even if he has his concerns about birth control, even if he has his own concerns about the birth control issue. The conversation with Amina, instead of providing clarity, has only increased Carlos's anxiety and introduced cultural differences into the mix, creating another layer of complexity. Bottom line up front, Carlos just in his feelings all day. So the question here is, how have cultural differences influenced Amina's viewpoint on discussing sexual health and birth control with teenagers, and how does this contrast with Carlos's initial approach to the issue?
First of all, can I ask a question?
Yeah, man, go ahead.
Why is Carlos talking to another woman about what's
Hey,
going on in
man.
his house?
Hey, man, don't shoot the messenger. I'm the messenger.
Are you
The
kidding me?
scenario.
But if we're speaking about the scenario, there are some cultures that say birth control is absolutely a sin. Like, you should not have it. Birth control should be illegal. There are some cultures that do that. However, this is his house. You understand what I'm saying? This is his house. And I understand that the cultures might be different, but so is society from where he came up and where she is now. Protection is preventative. I don't care how you feel about this. You can be mad all you want, but it is not. This is where I say get out your ego. It ain't about you. It's about her and protecting her. Why are you mad that she wants some protection? Get out the way. Move. You understand what I'm saying? Move. This is I'm sorry. I'm having a difficult time grasping this because this is just goofy to me. I am sorry. I'm sorry. I just
Ludicrous.
I'm trying to wrap my head around why Carlos is in his feelings the way that he is about his daughter getting some type of protection and it being brought to him. You know what? Let me mute my mic.
See, I think you said Carlos, Isabella, and Maria. So I'm just going to go, I'm throw it out there. They might be Hispanic. And a lot of Hispanics, not all, are Catholic. So culturally, they may look down on birth control. We already know the Muslim woman, whatever her name was, Amina or whatever. We already know she like, nah, we can't do that. And dude, you got to run your house because my husband tell me what to do. So I got to walk behind him. They should be behind you. So culturally, you got two different dynamics here, and you have a child that's in between being pulled in both directions. So we may not be able to understand it, but we can present facts. And when it comes to the facts of the matter, the girl won't birth control. The girl is 16. Now, I'm with you where he shouldn't be talking to Amina, this sidebar conversation, because, your man might come and chop. I can't say that on here. Come and do some bad things to you.
There you go.
But
Lorena Bobbitt.
But yeah, so I
Probably
think
pray
that
for all y'all.
culturally you got to understand the dynamic of the family, where religious beliefs and everything fall in line. Because if you just jump into it like Amina did, Amina go get her head chopped off by, dang, I can't say that. I mean, be bit off by the mother because she's stepping on her territory.
I just love how he said I can't say that after he said it. But go ahead.
I mean, so I'm with Roland and Chris, right? Because another woman is not going to give me pointers on handling my daughter when my wife is at home, right? Or the mother is available. Period. Right. But when you're looking at these cultural viewpoints, you got to remember, right? So did you say that, if I remember right, that Amina is from a
She is Arabic descent.
Arabic descent, right? So
Oh yeah, and they frown upon that type of stuff too.
yeah,
They really, really do.
the Islamic culture, they don't deal with a lot of medication unnecessarily if it's not really a health risk, right? They don't do a lot of vaccinations. They don't, and they are big on the idea of abstinence, right? Purity. You defame a woman if you sleep with her without marrying her, right? So now she has devalued the family's name by doing that. And that's how so her everything about her response anyway is based off of her cultural view, not based, because and just to be honest, you can't really deal with someone on your culture, on the conversation you having at home, when it's actually something that is really tied to their culture, because they are only going to give you a one-sided viewpoint. They're not capable of being honest with themselves and giving you another view, right? Then so now they're because now you're asking them to speak uh, on something that you may not even agree with. Now she giving you a perspective from an Islamic standpoint, and like Roman's saying, you probably Catholic. So how do y'all viewpoints meet up totally? So that's another barrier for me. I'm not going to somebody for any cultural opinions if I can't align myself with what they believe. And that's not to be funny or to slight anybody else's culture, but I know that for you, this is a cold conversation. In my house, this is really more of a tactical conversation I'm having, right? And I'm under fire. So I need to know how to handle the situation. So
I just want to go on record and say I can't stand Roland right now.
Can I hear from Osama bin
Cannot
Trippin?
stand Roland right now.
Osama bin Petty.
You said Osama bin Petty.
Osama bin Petty over there. What's your take on this, Osama bin Petty? I'm just saying.
got props all day, boy.
Props for days, man. I don't think nothing gonna beat the money trip. I'm just saying.
Osama bin Petty.
You're muted, sir. Oh, wow.
Muted. Let me mute.
No, I think culturally you have to realize where you are, because we as Americans, we have this so-called freedom of religion thing that we take pride in, and we try to push that on everybody else. Now, we don't know where Carlos is or I think Isabella, and where they are with this. So for us to just demand that they see it this way may be wrong also. So, but if the child wants it, she can get it. So I'm like,
so here's the other thing. And again, I know we're running short on time. I still got to play advocate just a little bit, because I think there's an automatic assumption that Maria don't know Amina. So we might be assuming that Maria don't know Amina and Carlos are best friends. They could be best friends. They may have been friends long before they got married. And Amina might be okay with their relationship, just like I don't know, Carlos might be okay with Maria's relationship with Tyrone as a friend. You know what I'm saying? I think that's an assumption. And I'm seeing a lot of comments and I'm hearing some comments as well, like, why is he going to her? Now, I want everybody to search their history and tell me you ain't never went to somebody of the opposite sex for insight. Exactly. So that's kind of like my point. I'm not going to say that he's wrong
Poker
for
faces
asking.
all around.
Exactly. I'm not going to say that he's wrong for asking a question that he doesn't have clarity on. Right. I'm not going to put him on the firing squad for talking to Amina again because we don't necessarily know whether or not Amina and him are friends and Amina and her are friends. Like she might be a family friend. We don't necessarily know that. And just getting it because maybe he wants to understand. Like maybe I'm wrong. I need for you to help me to understand. Help me to understand how I'm in error in this particular scenario. Right now, Amina probably gave him some bad advice according to his household and their culture. But again, I'm playing advocate. Go.
So I feel you, right? Because I used to have a female friend that we were really close and knew each other since what 15, I don't know. But then I got married. Not that she's not a friend, but if I go to her about something that's going on in my house, and I'm being honest, it's just me, even my female cousins, even my sister, me personally, I'm going to go and say, hey, as a woman, where am I going wrong? Maybe I need to hear it outside, but not advice on the decision I should make for my family. I think for me, that's the difference. I might go to her so that she can give me clarity from a female's point of view why she sees it that way. The same reason why these women in the chat are giving great insight because they have a different insight to the scenario that we don't have, right? And so I might learn something and it might help me understand what my wife is saying, whether we're friends, whether my wife knows that we're good friends or whatever the case may be. That's the only scenario for me I can see justification.
Based upon the stale faces, I think everybody agree or disagree. I don't know.
I'm sorry, but this is just me. If I already know that the person that I am talking to has a similar background that I do and thinks the same way that I do about this specific thing, why would I go to them unless I'm looking for reassurance about my decision instead of actually thinking about how my decision might affect the child? You understand what I'm saying? I just don't get it. I'm still trying to wrap my head around this. Why are you talking to somebody else about what is going on in your house? Especially when you know that 9 times out of 10, she is going to agree with you because you probably have similar backgrounds. I do not care if you are a friend of the family or not. I'm not coming to you about something my wife brought to me about my daughter. This is between me, my wife, and my daughter. And the fact that she even had an opinion instead of redirecting him to his family like a real friend supposed to says more about her than it does him.
Okay. I'm looking at Uncle like, yep, I ain't got nothing.
Well, I was thinking about that, and I was just like, I'm looking at the time, so I was just like, I'll let it be. I get that.
I'm actually agreeing with Chris and Roland and Gaddy on this. I mean, there is like, and if there is a young man who is actually married or whatever the case may be, don't take your household dynamics to another woman, even if y'all are friends. It won't work. It won't work out well for you. I promise. You might get some insight at that particular point in time, but you might end up nearsighted in the near future.
And
So
if you do,
I
and
get
she
that.
does not direct you back to where you should be having the conversation, she
Yeah.
is not your friend.
Absolutely.
I will say this in just to add on in theory.
Mhm.
In theory, it is sometimes good to get a different person's opinion because, like I said, sometimes when you talk to someone who think like you're just getting reassurance about the same thing. So sometimes someone else from a different culture can actually bring out different insight or something that you may not have thought about.
I
I'm just
agree.
saying that in theory. I'm not saying You should go out there like dudes and go and be telling some woman at work all your business about what's going on in your home. It's not what I'm saying.
Absolutely.
Appreciate
That's why we got Osama bin Petty down there, right? Whenever we want cultural insight, we go to that dude over there. But seriously, if I need some insight, I need that person need to like at least resemble me in some shape, form, or fashion. Doesn't have to be the exact same skin complexion or whatever, but they need to at least resemble me. I need to go get another dude, and I need to surround myself with people who I know aren't yes men. Like you are the type of people that would tell me, "So now you're wrong, bro." Those are the people that I need to go and have those conversations with. But at the end of the day, no, don't do it.
That was
Don't
my
do it.
next thought. Like, does Carlos have any friends that are
No,
men?
man.
Where is Ali? Where's
Right.
Where's
Where's
my husband?
Jesus?
yeah.
Listen,
Where
cut it out.
where are his
But-
hermanos?
Where's the son?
But we all know, just be honest though, we all know when we're going to somebody that's probably going to agree on a topic. We know when we're seeking validation
Mhm.
and not really an opinion. So I'm not even gonna get up here and flex like, oh, maybe he was trying to get no. He knew by going to his Islamic friend, he was gonna get validation.
But
What you got, Osama?
every brother up here, the response, if you were married and you had a wife and your wife went to whatever, it could be one of y'all. If my wife went to one of y'all and she said, well, coach said, first thing come out my mouth, I don't give a damn what coach said.
Coach don't pay the bills here.
And here's the other part. Coach fixing to call you as soon as we get off the phone.
Yep. I'm like, why are you
Right.
calling me?
Exactly. Coach,
As soon
we
as
need
we
to
hang
talk.
up, hey, bro, I need to talk to you real quick.
We need
For
to
real.
talk, son.
I ain't
talk.
even gonna answer the phone. I ain't gonna answer the phone. What I'm gonna do if I
Well,
see it come across,
I'm
I'm
gonna
gonna
answer the
text
phone.
Roland. Hey,
No, I'm gonna answer the phone because something might have happened. You know
yeah,
what I'm saying? So I gotta answer
Yeah.
the phone.
yeah.
But once I
Yeah.
answer the phone and I understand that I'm being called, talk about Unc or talk about Roland or talk about Gad or talk about Chris,
Like, nah.
that's my sister. I'm gonna listen, and I'm not
Uh-huh.
gonna say anything because I've been in this situation before. I'm not gonna say anything against them, right? I'm gonna say, well, maybe have you considered this? Have you considered that? Just ask questions to try to get her to think about something different. As soon as we get off the phone, hey, bro, I need to holler at you real quick. Yeah, you might want to tighten up your shot group because this is what I'm hearing. You know what I'm saying? I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just making sure that you understand. Because when it comes down to it, I got to tell you like the old folks say, my name is Nit and I ain't in it.
That name Bennett.
All right, listen. Another great conversation, and as always, we're at the point of the conversation to where it is bittersweet. So that takes us to the final thoughts for these young men, and they already have their order of march. So, with that being said, we are going to start off with the not the youngest guy in the group, but we're going to start off with my young brother from another mother, Chris, because everybody loves Chris.
I get humbled every time you say that. My final thoughts are simple. Like I said last week, disagreements are going to happen, but there has to come a point in time where you have to put your ego aside and actually listen to the person that is talking to you as if they have something that they could teach you. You do not have to always be right, but especially if the situation is not all is it, especially if the situation is about you, but is not about you. You understand what I'm saying? If the situation is bigger than you and your input is necessary, then yes, sometimes you're going to butt heads because you don't think the same. But on the same token, if the other person is bringing you viable information, maybe you need to take that information into consideration instead of getting in your ego and trying to have an unhealthy conversation and an unhealthy competition, trying to be right, beat your chest. Get out your ego, get out the way, move. That's my final thought.
Man, that was a great final thought. How to dismantle conflict. Final thoughts. Conflict. Final thoughts. Um, when there's conflict, you have to learn if you struggle with conflict or whatever like this, like has been mentioned before, there are going to be times where you're going to be in conflict with someone. It's just going to happen. So in the meantime, I think it's good to learn good peacemaking skills in order so you can deal with those things. You know what I mean? So, and I wrote down something else, but I can't read my handwriting. So that concludes my final thought for the evening.
Whew, man, this is a very important discussion to be had. And I do want to take this approach because we talked today about couples, right? About a couple going through an issue dealing with children. So for everyone who's looking for relationships, everyone's in a relationship, everyone who got children and has, both parents are involved, whether y'all together or not, keep the line of communication available always with each other and with your children, right? Because this has turned into a trust issue, right? And with even playing out into the conversation. And the last thing we need for our older or adult children is for them to lose trust in us as parents. And then for them to go out there and make a mistake that they can't dig themselves out of, and they are in fear of communicating with us because of how we react. Uh, and they stay in that burden too long. So we have to keep those lines of communications open. We have to continue trust. And older gentleman used to tell me a few years ago, you never stop parenting. He said when they're young, they stay on your heart. And what he said, when they older, they stay on your pocket. But nonetheless, we don't. I don't think parenting stops until we decease and we go into the grave. And even at that point, our voice should echo in their minds as they live on and pass things on to the next generation. That's all I got. Love you.
Man, conflict in a relationship, you are making sure that you're building trust with your wife, building trust with your kids, so that when they get to this point, they have no problem discussing the hard topics with you. In this situation that we talked about tonight, make sure that you are always discussing things, communicating, where you don't communicate just to get your point across, but you communicate to get an understanding. Because sometimes that's all it takes is a little understanding. If a father has a listening ear, he'll always be able to communicate with his children. And just because you don't see it or you don't understand it or see it the same way, doesn't mean that they aren't right. So make sure that in situations where it may get emotional, it may get testy, the parents need to be lockstep and and on one accord, and then you should bring the children on board so that they can voice their opinions, because you got to listen to them. You can't just tell them what to do, especially at 16, because then they'll be ready to get out of your house and from under your roof because they want to do their own thing. So if you can love on them until then and listen to them until then and encourage and teach, they'll be more apt to tell you things and you won't have to find things out behind your back.
Great conversation tonight. And these gentlemen, I think they were on fire. I really just emceed the whole conversation, just asking questions and throwing them curveballs. And as you can see, they responded phenomenally. So thank you to each one of these gentlemen on the panel. And thank you for everybody that's in the chat. For me, my last point, my final thought is just simply the empowering perspective membership program. This is where we actually do the training to kind of help people to have these conversations to where they keep cognition in the play and emotions don't run high, and they just create discord within their own environments. I think it's important for everybody to, everybody to understand men first, right? I think it's important for us to understand that men do a lot more than provide and protect. We have to keep our mental capacity about us. We have to keep our mental faculties, if you will, about us in the midst of every situation, so that we can actually be the men in our household that God actually designed us to be. We also need to realize that our wives, our spouses, are valued partners. They're not beneath us, they're with us, right? They help us to do the things that we were created to do. They have their own things that they're doing. We have our own things that we're doing. And if we choose correctly, we're actually doing the same thing, just doing different tasks within it. So we have to learn to communicate at such a level to where we value one another. We have to learn to communicate at such a level to where everybody actually is heard. And we got to understand that there's a difference between being heard and feeling as though you're heard. Two totally different things, right? And so that's one of the things I want to make sure I'm stressing. So again, if you're a young man out there who are contemplating, getting married in a serious relationship or already married, make sure that you keep an open mind when it comes down to everything. There's always more than one perspective. I do this all the time. This is just one side of the water bottle. This is not the entirety, but this is the only side you see. That is called perspective. And keep in mind, you have to triangulate a perspective to get closer to what reality really is. So you have to realize that your point of view and her point of view, even though it may look different, if you actually listen closely to what each other is saying, then you will realize that, hey, well, maybe I wasn't 100% correct in this. And my last point, nobody ever is. So that being said, we just want to thank you guys for joining us. I appreciate all the love you guys are giving us in the chat. Listen, we appreciate you guys being here, and we just want to add value to you every time that we see you on Friday night. That being said, every Friday right here, 8 p.m. We look forward to talking to you again next week because we're going to get into the solution of conflict resolution, which is actually called thoughtful disagreement. So you guys have a great rest of your evening and an even better weekend. Until next week.